offers a lot of protections for individuals who are collecting signatures, even some protections that allow them to be on private property, like in front of a Walmart, as some individuals were doing in Yakima on Labor Day weekend. But the mayor of Yakima, Janice Decio, didn't seem to understand or know the law. She's a Democrat. And as we played for you on Tuesday, she wound up calling 911, describing these signature gatherers as, some far fringe right-wing lunatics. Here's a clip of her 911 call.
911.
Hi, this is Mayor Decio. I know that this isn't an emergency call, but I need to talk to somebody. I've emailed the chief, but there's some far right-wing petitioners at Walmart, and they're not leaving after Walmart has asked them repeatedly to do so, and the police have not taken them off the premises.
We did have a call of that earlier. Who is this?
This is Mayor Decio.
Okay.
It's the mayor. So I want to first note that the idea that signature gatherer was there for a far right-wing agenda is laughable. In fact, he was there collecting signatures for initiatives that are part of the Let's Go Washington initiative package, which we've talked about on the show many times. These are things like bring down taxes, restore reasonable police pursuits. This is really common sense stuff that I don't think you even have to be a Republican to support. So it's just a complete mischaracterization to suggest that individuals there were some fringe right-wing group. So anyway, when we covered this story on Tuesday, we told you there was going to be a Yakima City Council meeting Tuesday night, and we were told that this was going to be addressed, and it was right off the top of the meeting. That's what the mayor wanted to start with.
Before we get to the first item on the agenda, I have a statement to make in light of some misinformation that has been circulating. I'll try to be brief. On Labor Day, I was called early on Sunday morning by a constituent who informed me that, in his words, an extreme right-wing group was petitioning at Walmart and creating problems for shoppers. Who the group was is not the issue here, as I don't care and I don't know what they were petitioning about.
Yeah, but first, let me just stop her there. I'm going to play more of her statement, but I'll just remind you, Nicole, can we play just a little clip again from that 911 call?
There's some far right-wing petitioners at Walmart. I have had some constituents call me to tell me about some right-wing petitioners over at Walmart.
So I'm sorry, when the mayor says in her statement at the city council meeting that it didn't matter to her who they were or what they were there supporting, she clearly felt confident regurgitating that line and describing them in that way. If she didn't care what side of the aisle, what political party, what agenda those petitioners have, then why did she bring it up repeatedly during the call to 911? So that just does not hold water to me. Okay, let's continue with her comment at the top of the meeting. She kind of goes on to not only justify what she did, but to suggest that as the mayor, she has a right to call 911 even if it's not an emergency.
Numerous credible local people have told me since then that the petitioner's behavior was aggressive, they felt harassed, and even threatened by them. He asked if I could find out why the police wouldn't help the manager. Being a Labor Day weekend, I wasn't able to reach anyone at the non-emergent police number, and the chief didn't answer when I emailed him, although he did call me back later. So I called 911, identified myself, and told them it was not an emergency and that I needed to talk to someone who may know what was going on. It is within my purview to call 911 when I have a question.
It's not in your purview to call 911 when you have a question, Mayor. I don't know where you think that is. It's not in anyone's purview to be able to just pick up the phone and use 911 as your personal answering service for something that you acknowledge off the top of the phone call was not an emergency, that you just had some questions about. I'll also point out what I feel like is just another mistruth in the comments is that, she has said that people were telling her, and one of the reasons she called is that these signature gatherers were harassing people. They were making people feel intimidated and threatened. She never mentioned that in the call to 911. That would have been a different situation if you had a signature gatherer who was threatening or harassing or intimidating people. surely she would have mentioned that in the 911 call, but she doesn't. She just keeps repeating that they're, far right wingers. So she goes on in her statement at the top of the city council meeting, and she details some of the hate that she says she has received since the 911 call was posted publicly without her phone number, which she gives to the dispatcher at the end, being redacted.
I admit I was unaware of all the nuances of the law at the time, though, and in hindsight, I could have waited to hear from the chief. But I did know that if petitioners were harassing or interfering with shoppers, the business could ask them to move. I just wasn't aware that it took a court order. I never asked the police to go to Walmart or demanded that they do anything. No one told the group that they couldn't petition, and it was certainly not my intention to stop them. I have a degree in journalism, and I'm the last person who would infringe on anyone's freedom of speech. Since this 911 call, was made public without my personal phone number being redacted, I've had hundreds of phone calls, texts, and voicemails from across the country. Some of them are quite juvenile and include sexual harassment. I got one this morning that I'd like to play for you.
Yes. I was just wondering how a beautiful face could be such a liberal cunt that would like to stop democracy.
This has also affected my husband, who is a disabled veteran from the Iraq War. He has PTSD, as they've been harassing him as well. So this has been conflated to new heights, as these things often do when inaccurate perspectives are reported. So this is my statement, and this is all I'm going to say about this. And so we can get on with the rest of the meeting.
So a few things. When she says this has been conflated to new heights, as things often are when inaccurate information is or perspectives are reported, it's what she did in that 911 call. Elevating this to a situation where someone who is lawfully gathering signatures, who is described as some, extremist on 911, when the mayor calls 911 about something like that. And so I would say that she was at the forefront of turning this into something that it did not need to be. Also, that wasn't an apology. You'll notice that wasn't any sort of form of an apology or, hey, I've learned a lesson from this. Now, she did acknowledge that she wasn't fully informed about the laws around signature gathering, but there wasn't any sort of mea culpa. I also would just point out, that voicemail she shared with us, she also shared a couple social media posts, completely disgusting and awful. And no elected official deserves to be spoken to in that way, deserves to be treated in that way. And I don't understand why people who are opposed to what she did think that that's somehow going to benefit them or further their cause or their message. However, I also don't agree with using it as sort of a crutch to get out of criticism, which is too often done, particularly by politicians on the left. I've seen Seattle City Council members do this a lot, where they do something that is very worthy of criticism, and then they trot out, well, now I'm being attacked. Now I have people sending me angry messages and Twitter messages. To me, that's bad, but also I'm not going to allow you to use that as something to avoid criticism and scrutiny because you want people to feel like, okay, now she's the victim, she's being targeted, so we got to back off. I'm not going to back off. I'm also, going to express my disappointment with the way that some people responded to this situation. But rather than have me deliver my final sort of thoughts on how I feel about this, I actually think a Yakima resident named Eric Torres, who went to the city council meeting on Tuesday night, summed this up in his public testimony way better than I ever could about the problem with what she did and how she addressed it. So I'm going to let Eric Torres speak for me and so many other common sense, sane individuals who have a problem with how this all went down.
Madam Mayor, I find it regrettable that you had those responses. When my wife ran for commissioner, there were some pretty vile things said and produced about her too. So I get that. However, like I said, I'm not excusing any of that. If there would have been any hint of remorse or even just saying I'm sorry about an understanding, I would have abdicated my time tonight. But I do find it kind of shameful that instead you gave yourself a pass in your actions. And I also just want to say that I heard the call and your use of extreme right wing. What is the difference between being conservative and being extreme right wing. What does that even mean? It's, in my opinion, inflammatory language trying to gin up a response and trying to criminalize being somewhat conservative. And we're seeing that on the national stage all over the place. So I find it disturbing that you choose to use that kind of language when you call 911, who are our law enforcement agency, to ask a question, but you are artificially conflating the people that are there with extreme behavior, which there wasn't any extreme behavior.
Eric Torres, I could not have said it better myself.